Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let me talk to you about the latest around the writer's strike. It has officially began, where writers from across the country have decided to put their pens down and walk away from their laptops and keyboards to show the movie industry that they are valuable, that they are worth the money that they're asking for. We'll break it down for you and talk about why it's important for us, even here on this Black media platform, to have this conversation. Also, we'll talk about National Business Week that's kicked off this week. We'll be checking in and having some conversations about that. And then we're going to be joined by Dr. Robert Dalen Brown, who's going to talk to us about unresolved justice and the accuser of Emmett Till, Carolyn Bryant, how her passing may have left a major, major void in the heart of Black America. And then, of course, we got some stuff said by Isaiah Washington, folks. If you haven't heard, just stick around. We'll bring it to you the latest. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. All right, first up, I wanted to have a little one-on-one with you folks, really to bring us up to speed on what we're seeing right now, as there is a major writer's strike that has begun, folks. And if you did not know about this strike, well, that's why we asked you to tune in, so you will know. But more importantly, here's the thing, folks. This writer's strike, which is a strike that professional writers who write all of our favorite shows, the late night shows, anything that you see on TV that is scripted or in some cases unscripted, but this writer's strike is at the heart and the core of all of that great programming, all of that great content. And so they were scheduled. They had between the Writers Guild of America, the Writers Guild East and Writers Guild West of America, and the Alliance of the Motion Picture, which is like an association of your top Hollywood studios, production companies, from everyone from Sony to Fox to Paramount, who are part of this Alliance of Motion Pictures. They have not been able to come up with a deal that really affects the compensation, the pay of writers getting paid for their work. They have not come up with a deal on how to make sure that writers benefit from streaming services. As we all know, Netflix, Hulu, everybody has a streaming service. But even though these streaming services are successful in some cases, the shows are moving out at a rapid pace, new shows are always coming out, the writers are still on the lower end of the totem pole in getting the money and getting any type of residuals from these streaming services. So let me just bring you up to speed, folks, on why this is important. And I want us to have a conversation about it, because I think it's essential that we keep our eyes on it. For one reason is because of this. One, I have not seen, and I was just talking to our executive producer, Joel, about this, I have not seen any coverage about this writer's strike on Black news outlets as of today. As of today, folks. Now, that certainly can change, but there's no talk. There's more talk about what happened at the Met Gala than there is about this writer's strike. And I understand, okay, that's fine. But the writer's strike gets to the heart and the core of the matter. You can't have these major actors and actresses coming together if they don't have projects to work on. But I have not seen, I just done a scan earlier today before coming on the show, folks. I'm not seeing the conversation about this writer's strike, which is interesting, considering that Black people, and this is something my executive producer shared with me, he said he's been in the business for years, that Black Americans are the biggest consumers of media. Let me just say this again. We are the biggest consumers of media in this country. We get our information, we get our attitudes and our beliefs are shaped by what we're seeing, what we're reading, what we're hearing. We are the biggest consumers of media. So it's interesting that we're not seeing this at the top of the site or at the top of the page when we're looking at Black media outlets, because we have to be mindful of what's going on with this. So I think that's interesting that we're the biggest consumers of media. The other thing is, when we talk about representation, we often talk about representation through the lens of Hollywood. Now, of course, we talk about it through the lens of Washington, D.C. We're talking about political representation, but then we also are talking about creative representation, representation on TV, representation in the director's chair, representation in the stories that we tell, representation. So I wanted to make sure that at least here on the culture here on the Black Star Network, that we start to look at this situation because it's important. Now, here's what the writer's situation breaks down to, folks. And I want you to join me in the conversation. Post your thoughts on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, as we're having this discussion. But here's the thing that gets me about what we're seeing here. What is the big thing that writers are asking for at this time? This is the big thing. What are writers asking for? And this strike started at 12:01 a.m. this morning because the union representing the writers' strike, the Writers Guild of America, they could not come to an agreement with, as I mentioned, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which bargains on behalf of the 9 largest studios. They failed to reach a contract. So writers, they said, are facing an existential crisis. Now, the writers' strike happened before, back in 2007 and 2008, when writers went on strike. It brought the entertainment industry to a complete halt. $1 billion of revenue was lost for the city of Los Angeles, and it's by itself. And it went on for 100 days, where some of our favorite shows at that time, talk shows, all of those scripted shows, did not air. They did not air. Now we're seeing a different ecosystem for writers. We're seeing a different economics for Hollywood, along with your traditional, your traditional production houses, your movie houses, your film studios. You have streaming services are now into the picture. And streaming services has complicated some things for Hollywood, and particularly for writers, because they're putting out content much more. They're putting it out at such a higher pace than, say, your normal networks are. And at the same time, they're expecting a high level of turnover in terms of getting writers in, getting work on the show, moving out to the next show. So a lot of writers are talking about, of course, what does this mean, like getting paid for that? The other thing is that there are not enough writers in the room. That's another concern that the WGA has had, that there aren't enough writers in the room to make sure that these shows are written well, their quality, to put them out there. All right, I want to take a quick pause right here because I think it's important that we get your take on this. And I just want to, again, just throw this out there. And I want to be clear that we're talking about why it's important for us to have a conversation about writers. It's important because it goes to the essence of what we talk about with representation and the fact that we are the number one consumers, folks, the number one ethnic group watching live TV. You're talking about playing game consoles, smartphone media. I mean, across the board, streaming audio, across the board. Let me just share some numbers with you very quickly. The top 20 advertisers spend on media, they focused on African Americans, has increased from $3.34 billion in 2011 to $3.86 billion in 2019, which is almost a 16% increase among how we consume media. So these advertisers, the top 20 advertisers, are spending money on media focused on us. It's focused on us. All right, let me go to what you have to say, crew. Tiana, you said the fact that writers are getting paid less than they're used to is a damn shame. They produce the content for the public to watch. Not only are they producing, and a great point, Tiana, not only are they producing the content for the public to watch, but can you imagine, and this is what we're starting to see more and more of. Let's take Black Panther, for example. Ryan Coogler was the writer of the first Black Panther. He wrote the second Black Panther with a couple of other folks, right? He wrote the movie. He directed the movie, right? And of course, the movie was targeted to us as Black folks, right? So that's how important the situation is. If there is a writer's strike, or more importantly, if there is a deficit of Black writers at the table, that movie may not have been made. But you shouldn't have to be a Ryan Coogler to get your project seen. You shouldn't have to be a Ryan Coogler to get into the writer's room. You have emerging writers. You have phenomenal young writers, new writers. They don't have to be young in sense of age. I'm saying young in terms of industry experience. But you have all of these Black, intelligent, talented writers in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our families, that never thought about sitting in the writer's room, possibly writing it for a show and for Hollywood. I know that, unless you are a part of the industry, unless you are a part of the arts and culture and arts and entertainment industry, that is not something, that's not a regular job. You know, your child will say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I want to be a writer of TV and films. That's just not a part of the conversation. Well, mom and dad, I want to be a director. Mom and dad, we often put our children in front of the camera, but behind the camera, creating the content, that's really that's really not where the big bucks are, but that's where you make the big impact, because you are telling the story. That's where you make the big impact. So Tiana, I appreciate you for saying that. And I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. We are going to do our due diligence here on the culture to keep up to date, to keep our eyes on how this writer strike is going to pan out, folks. And very quickly, there are a number of stories that you should watch for. USA Today, they just did a piece about this strike. New York Times did a piece about it. This comes down to money. This comes down, to respect. This is and as the studios approach the negotiations, their take is that they're offering writers generous packages. They also say that the long-term health and stability of the industry is a priority, because they believe that it's a shaky time in the industry. This is coming from the Alliance of Motion Pictures. This is what they said in their statement. Entertainment conglomerates and streaming services are looking to bolster their bottom line, and they're ratcheting back a spending spree on new content that has hurt profits. This is coming out of USA Today. So as much as we are seeing this strike from writers, the industry itself is also cutting back on jobs. Disney are laying off people. Netflix have laid off people. So the industry is changing. So the question becomes, how do we respond to that? How do we make sure that we're represented? How do we make sure our story is being told? And how do we tap into the creative brilliance that comes from Black America to be able to be in these spaces, so we, as the changing of the industry is happening, we can be there to take advantage of the opportunity of that change. So we're going to have a much bigger conversation about this, but I wanted to bring this to our attention and let you know. And folks, as we're looking at this, we certainly wanted you to join us. So we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about the National Minority Business Week that's happening right now, and so much more. So stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black
own media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, we're going to switch gears from talking about writers and Hollywood to talking about business, as this week marks National Small Business Week. It happens from April 30th through May the 6th. And here to talk to us about the state of small businesses in our country, and more importantly, how do we make sure that small businesses are sustained, is Ms. Renee Johnson, who is a senior advisor for public-private strategies. Renee, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. How are you this afternoon, sis?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. So excited to talk about National Small Business Week, which many people do not know exists. So
right,
really to amplify this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's important just because there are so many Black folks that that own small businesses. We have a lot of side hustles, Renee. You know it and I know it, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned, my dad was an entrepreneur, my wife has been an entrepreneur, but one of the things that I have learned is that, the side hustle thing is one thing, but to legitimize your business is something, and when I say legitimize, meaning like to make sure your business is registered in the state the business is in.
Having an EIN number, having a business banking account, and not your personal checking account.
Right. Just a simple those things, but then also to be a part of networks, a network of resources that can help your business grow, so that way you don't have to keep doing the 9-to-5 thing and then the side hustle small business thing on the weekends or in the evening. So let's talk a little bit about this, because you work as a senior advisor for public-private strategies. First and foremost, how would you describe the work that you do with small business?
Well, one, it's impactful, right? Because there's not a lot of people in this space that look like me. So as a senior advisor working with small businesses with public-private strategies, it's been an honor. We work with business owners across the country, but also we work with different organizations, advocacy groups, chambers, you name it. So it's like the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. We work with USHCC, which this is the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, National ACE, the National Minority Supplier Development Council, which was in existence for 50 years and started out in Chicago with a lot of civil rights issues. And guess what? It's still existing today. And unfortunately, fighting for some of the same, advocacy issues that they did when they first were created. So pairing up with all these organizations, connecting them to business owners across the country, and more specifically, providing them resources, opportunities, and engagement, not only with them, but also with the federal government too. We definitely work with the SBA and partner with them with a monthly webinar series that's called Building a Better America, that we want to help amplify the resources, not only at the SBA, but also with these awesome organizations as well.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the state of the small business here in America. And I meant, I said minority at first, but I want to correct it. It's small business. because that could be anybody. That's not relegated to any particular ethnic group or gender or anything like that. That could be anybody, right?
Right. And what I want to make sure we do is stop saying small business and we're meaning Black people or small business Hispanic.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute, Renee. We don't need you to come on this show and you start a whole bunch of trouble.
I'm just saying.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah, because we're really big, you know, and our amazing, you know, brothers and sisters, like Oprah Winfrey is a business. And guess what? She's $1 billion business, right? We have $1 billion businesses out there. And guess what? They're not small. So we
no, they're not small.
Making that connection. So I appreciate what you just said there.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you making the clarification, because we often look at the Black business as the small business, right? We actually say it depends on who you talk to. It's like Black business means side hustle, or Black business can be small business. It never gets more than beyond 100 people who are employed by your business, right?
Right.
So I think that's one thing. But here's the thing: as we have this conversation about small business, I remember seeing a cover for Forbes magazine and had this sister on the cover. And it was talking about capitalism. And it was like, I think the cover is, if I'm not mistaken, and Kenny, if you can find it, that would be awesome. I think the Forbes cover said, the face of capital, the new face of capitalism. And they had this Black woman who was a CEO on the cover. I think you know which cover I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do.
And I have to admit, Renee, when I saw it, it kind of hit me
like, what are we talking about?
Right? Like, I know what my personal politic is about making money, capitalism, and all of those things. But I was a little bit like, should Black women be the new face of capitalism, considering that we have been suffering under the economic system of capitalism for so long? So that's why it hit me a little different. I was thinking about the historical impact. I was thinking about the red tape that small businesses and Black businesses have to endure even to this present moment. So I'm like, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, Forbes. That's a tough one. What's your take on that?
Well, I think what they're trying to say, or what they were trying to imply, is that Black women are creating more businesses at an astounding rate, right?
Okay.
And I think across the country, like, more Americans are starting businesses than ever before. You know, in 2021 and 2022, we saw record numbers, but the application numbers have substantially grown this year. Americans applied to start 10.5 million new businesses, which is a record number of businesses being started. And let's also put out there, these are legitimate businesses, not side hustles, not like, well, you know, I bake cakes on the side. This is legitimate business owners who are doing their thing, who are trying to make sure that they're living this American dream as well. And so what I believe that cover was trying to project and sort of put out there was not necessarily the capitalism, like, you know, old school, you know, founding fathers in our country, but more specifically that Black women are in the future going to be the number one business owners in our country. We're seeing them increasing every year. And by far, we know, when you support a Black-owned business, especially a Black women-owned business, you're not only supporting a family, you're supporting a community as well.
I like how you put that.
I mean, that's what my shirt says today, you know, support Black women in business. So I'm doubling down on it. Or just for this moment, because
no, I get it. Now that from that explanation, I can understand it, right? And I'm not sure if everyone uses the same level of context or apply the same level of context that you just did, but I like that. I mean, I agree. I think Black women, you as a segment of the population, one of the most industrious groups of our country in terms of innovating, revolutionizing, taking things to the next level. We already know that. As a Black man who had a Black mother, you know, I already know that. But the rest of the country and the world needs to see that. So I definitely understand. How do we make sure, though, that in that respect, Renee, that it doesn't become a wedge to be used to divide Black men from Black women from Black communities? How do we make sure that the success of the Black women business owner is the success of the community, of the family?
Well, we know one, right? By large and far numbers, Black women usually marry Black men. They have Black babies. They have Black families. They usually live close in proximity to their community. They're going to serve at their church that they grew up in, or they're finding a community or church that they are now residing in, right? Because one thing that we do is we thrive in community. And so I don't think there'll be a divide, right? I think the world may want to try to divide us, but we don't divide ourselves. We've seen it through the civil rights era. We've seen it through so many time and true testaments of what happens in our community. We stick it out together because we know the support of our Black men is very, 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 very much needed in our community to be successful. And behind these Black businesses, right, these Black-owned women businesses, we do know that there are Black men that are supportive, that are helpful, that make sure that we are being successful as well. Whether it's a father, an uncle, a brother, a nephew, whomever, there's always someone that we can look back and say, without them, we wouldn't be able to be here as well. So it is a community sense. And because the businesses that are created are for the community. More likely than when you see a Black-owned business and it's a woman-owned, it's something that's serving someone or serving a community or finding a way to fix a need, right? And so that's what we want to amplify and ensure. The other thing that's great about all this is, the Biden administration put out all of these, laws to help with funding. And so at this time, it's really important too that we all understand what's going on so that we can make sure not only Black women-owned businesses are getting resources and contracts and accessibility to all this funding that's coming out, but all Black businesses as well are doing so too.
Absolutely. All right, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with Renee Johnson, Senior Advisor for Public-Private Strategies, talking about National Small Business Week that's happening this week, folks. We want you to join us in the conversation. Post your comments on our Facebook and YouTube page. And of course, stay tuned. We got more conversations for you right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We have been talking about National Small Business Week. Here's a look at the website, folks. National Small Business Week, which is an opportunity for small businesses to learn how to build resources, to network with one another, and to essentially take their businesses to the next level. Let me just share with you something very quickly. Approximately, according to the latest research, there are more than 33 million small businesses in America, folks. 33 million. And entrepreneurship is booming right now for the years of 2021 and 2022. A record-breaking 10.5 million new business applications were filed. 10.5 million new business applications were filed. So we're seeing something very, very different here in America, especially after the pandemic, where there has been a huge, huge decline in public trust and confidence that corporations and other organizations and businesses are going to be around to be able to continue to pay people, or they're going to be around to be sustainable. And so I think a lot of Americans, folks, are starting to jump into this entrepreneurship pool and say, you know what? It's not so deep. The water's pretty warm, and let's get a business open. I've been talking to Ms. Renee Johnson, Senior Advisor for Public-Private Strategies, as we talk about National Small Business Week. And I want to get your take on this as well, folks. So post your comments on our YouTube page and our Facebook page, as we're streaming right now on those platforms, as well as on Black Star Network and Amazon News. So Renee, let's go back to you. 33 million small businesses in America, 10.5 million new business applications were filed. Can we say specifically that the small business is still the backbone of America? I've been hearing that for years as a child, now into adulthood. Is that still the case today?
It is still the case, and it will always be the case, right? Because our country was founded on small businesses. Bartering system was the initial way of how we did things, right? Everyone didn't have currency, but you had something. And that is initially what a business is. You may not have the means right now to get paid for something, but you're able to exchange services in order to make something work. And so that's what the foundation of businesses are all about. We're able to render something that someone else wants in the exchange of something that we need.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how does that work in terms of making sure that the voices, the power of small business is leveraged in these bigger conversations? And I'm saying in these conversations for political conversations, social, even economic conversations, it seems like corporations, and I'm sure you probably had these discussions among your colleagues, but corporations run America, right? Like corporations run America. I'm looking at the situation down in Florida right now. Disney is not a small business. When you not by any means, right? But the mouse is packing a mighty punch, right? Like if the mouse says that this is what we're doing, the culture tends to kind of follow the mouse, right? When we're looking at some of these other corporations, when I look at these big companies, I'm still like they're pulling the puppet strings of political leaders. They are, and this is actually one of the things that Governor DeSantis said, which I'm not a fan of Governor DeSantis, but I do think it's interesting. He said that corporations are setting the cultural agenda for this country.
That's interesting.
And I'm like, a little truth mixed with all of the madness and falsehood he be putting out. But is that where we are? Like, does small business have the power to combat that?
Yes. And you know why? Because that mouse, he can't just get his cheese himself. He can't run all the rides himself. There are so many contractors that work and are a part of Disney. And a lot of them, I would say most of them, are probably small businesses. From a subprime to a prime contract, they are all intertwined and interconnected, because without them, Disney could not be what they are today. And so it is in its best interest of these corporations, who definitely have to look to the smaller businesses, especially those who are in the contracting space with them, to provide those services, right? That they are working together in tandem. But also don't forget, there's so many amazing organizations that do advocacy here in DC and also across the country into state and local governments. Like you have the National Minority Supplier Development Council. They are doing so much to make sure that contracting for minorities are going to be fair, right? And they're getting the opportunity to apply and eligible for RFPs, whether it's through the federal side or through the business private organizations, right? Then you have like women impacting public policy. They continuously are pounding the hill and actually extended this runway extension program to ensure those who are trying to get into contracting opportunities have a longer opportunity to make sure that they not only get a contract, but also that they're working with the contract and they don't fall off a cliff after so many years not a contract. So there's so many organizations out here that are doing the good work, that are supporting these small businesses, because again, the small businesses make the bigger businesses go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just hard for me to believe, though, Renee, that when we do have these big conversations, when we're talking about the state of the economy or the sustainability of a community, that small business leaders aren't at the table as much, or we're not hearing about small business leaders being at the table.
They are. And I think, we have so many organizations, and also there's the Small Business Committee in the Senate and House. And so anyone here watching today can advocate to the United States Senate and to the United States House of Representatives about small business issues that are impacting not only their business, but also their community. And then also you could take that a step further and do what you need to do in your state and local community. Advocacy is key. And you don't have to be a huge organization to make a ripple. All it takes is the voice of a few to make a mighty impact. And that's all we need to start doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to also talk about, let's talk about the Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm from the state of Maryland. I'm from Baltimore, relocated to Los Angeles. And I remember that in Baltimore, there was a Black Chamber of Commerce that would assist with small business. We had the SBA as well, Small Business Association, but there was a Black Chamber of Commerce, which was a very well-known, network. It got people connected. But in my understanding, and I could be completely wrong on this, Renee, so correct me. But when I look at other states, that is not always a given. That can kind of be an exception to the rule. How do we build a Black Chamber of Commerce, with our small businesses within the Black community?
Well, I want to also throw out there, too, that there's a Minority Business Development Agency, and it was codified, which means it now has its own undersecretary, which is Don Cravens, and he's the first Black undersecretary at the Department of Commerce. So it's really huge to know this. And there are MBDA centers across the country that will help minority businesses get connected to resources, opportunities, and engagement to help their businesses. So let's set that aside. Then there's also the SBA centers. So you could go wherever you need to on the SBA website, hit locator, and you could find a resource in your local community that can help you, whether it's a veterans business, a women's small business center, or the SBA itself center in your local community. So there's those. And then also there's so many organizations like the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. That are doing the Lord's work, if you will. And they have chapters across the country. You can go to their website to see if there's a chapter near you. They're very active. And Ron Busby is the president and CEO of that.
Awesome. Look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I know you got your fire alarm, so we're going to make sure, see how that works out. But we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, I want to share 2 points that y'all are bringing up, crew members, that I think that are absolutely important for Renee Johnson to speak to. 2 points. The point of raising the minimum wage, and I saw that, raising the minimum wage, the impact that it will have on small businesses, and what to do with that quote-unquote $1 trillion buying power. Conscious Thought, I see you, bro. You said that $1 trillion economic buying power. What do you do with that to create the next generation of Black millionaires and billionaires? Conscious Thought, you said that we can do it. Let's see if that's possible, if there's a pathway for that. So those 2 points will come up next in the conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
hatred on the streets. A horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the Culture on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We have been talking about National Small Business Week, which is happening right now. It's been going on since April the 30th, and it will end on May the 6th. This is the National Small Business Week, where we talk about celebrating, networking, building resources, and essentially strengthening small businesses in every community throughout the country. And we've been checking in with Miss Renee Johnson, who serves as a senior advisor for public-private strategies, as we've been having this conversation about a host of different facets of being a small business owner in the country and the impact that it makes on Black America in particular. Hopefully we got Renee back. Renee, you got us with us?
Yes. Apologies for that.
No. You got a fire alarm. You ain't got a pray.
Welcome.
Get out
welcome.
the building, sis. Get out.
You saw I was like, wait a minute.
No questions asked. But very quickly, you know, right? Exactly. But very quickly, I want to get 2 points because my online crew brought up 2 great points around this situation. One is looking at this idea of Black folks and our economic buying power. My brother Conscious Thought checked in and said, with an estimated $1 trillion plus of economic buying power, the Black community has the potential to create hundreds of billionaires. Is that the case? Is that something that you're seeing that we could potentially do? Or is this buying power looked at, is this just one number, but we need to consider some other things before we even get to the space of creating Black millionaires and billionaires?
I think it's synonymous, right? I think it's twofold, right? One, we have the buying power. We have the ability. We saw it before. We done it before, right? We saw it with Black Wall Street. There's no reason we can't do that again. And so more specifically, I think what it is just making sure that we have the support and resources that we're putting not only into our adults in education and financial literacy, but instilling it into our children at a younger age. We are seeing people who are becoming influencers and making a lot of money on social media, but yet they don't know how to invest their money. So if you don't know how to invest your money, you don't understand financial literacy and everything that goes with money, no matter what type of business you open, no matter what type of business that you're able to get and all the money you're making from it, the financial literacy component is so have that $1 trillion spending in our own community. We won't have billionaires because no one's spending the money properly and invest in it properly if there's no education and understanding of how money works.
So let me ask you, when we're talking about creating this like economic opportunity, and I want to say this in the most, just factual way, should we operate like white businesses have been operating, where it's all about the bottom line, profit over people? Or should there be some nuance to our form of quote unquote capitalism? I don't know what that, if that nuance might be a level of socialism or whatever the case may be, but should there be a nuance where it's not just about money? It's about empowering people. It's about, building communities. It's about, where our businesses is not just about the sustainability of itself, that there is a social responsibility component. Should we have a model or that standard for black small businesses?
Well, I think it's twofold as well, again, right? Because I don't know, the white business model and the black business model that you're speaking of are so different, right? I think that there are white businesses that have that social impact component as well, that are do-goods, like your Warby Parkers and things of that nature, right? Your Toms, right? But then you have some black businesses who are all about their dollar, right? They don't care about anything else, but they just want to make a dollar. But they're not providing any social impact to their community. They're just taking their community. I think what we need to do, again, is just come back to what's the goal of the business? What are we trying to achieve? And if we're being true to what the achievement is of that goal of the business, then I think if it's giving back to people, then make sure you're doing that, because I think naturally it will then be residuals you will see from your business, and people will want to support you. Not only just black people, but all people will want to support you, because to be honest, if you're a business owner, if you want to make money, you're not really looking at the color of someone's skin who's buying your product. You're looking to make sure people are buying your product who appreciate it.
Should we, and then very quickly, I know we're going to have to wrap in a couple of moments, but should we look back at what we saw with Wall Street, the Black Wall Street Tulsa? Like, what was their philosophy of running business and having businesses? Because just as much as they established these businesses, they also built these communities. It wasn't just Tulsa, it was Greenwood, it was towns all across this country that were cropping up Black-owned towns. Yep. So what was their philosophy that they used that we may be able to gain from today?
Well, one, I think it was the dollar didn't leave their community quickly, right? During that time when we were creating it, because you couldn't go out your community and make those purchases. You didn't go see a doctor that was not Black. You didn't go see a dentist that was not Black. You didn't have a white teacher. You had a Black teacher. Like, everything was in the community. And so I think in thinking through how can we bring back some of those sort of like priorities or principles, I think it's just ensuring that we are working in the community to uplift the community and then also support. And if we're using that principle there, we're going to really, truly build strong communities that are ingrained in society impact and ensuring that people are winning all across. Because I'm supporting your business and you're supporting my business and all down the line, that dollar has then traveled back around to us versus going outside and never coming back into our community.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Final point, Comic Book Chris talked about this: raise the minimum wage and watch small businesses get wrecked. Is that the fate?
I think there's a lot of nuances with that, right? When you raise the minimum wages, because there's some industries that does not apply to, right? If you talk about restaurants and bars, those are tipped wages. That's a whole nother set of people and situations and advocacy that happens all the time, right? And so I think we do need to talk about the minimum wage. We need to talk about livable wages, because no one should be living in poverty and working a 9-to-5 job or going to work and then have to get a second job to support their first job, right? You should be able to have a livable means. And as business owners, we should be able to support that. But also, how does the government be able to provide healthcare and all these other benefits to these business owners at affordable cost so that they're able to provide their staff with opportunities to, get paid more money? So I think it's like a whole cycle and a conversation of things that need to happen. It's not just one thing, because it impacts the entire cycle.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Renee, I appreciate you for jumping on and having this conversation. How can more people get more information about National Small Business Week and what to expect and what to do, how they can get involved in this whole process?
Yeah, so people could go to the SBA's website. They have a page dedicated to National Small Business Week, the one that you just previously showed. And basically, you'll find out about all the awardees that won awards for Small Business of the Year. You can see the agenda. There is a seminar that's going on for today and tomorrow. So you can check out and look at the agenda to see if there's any webinars that you wish to choose to be a part of and learn more information. And then also there's a national tour that's happening. And so the administrator of the SBA is going to 5 different cities across the country and doing live events. And so you can find all that information on their website.
That's awesome. Renee Johnson, Senior Advisor for Public-Private Strategies. Renee, we certainly love to have you back on and continue to bring us your insight on this issue and other issues relating to businesses. But thank you for being with us today. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, and hopefully no more fires in the future.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. Thank you, Renee. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about unresolved justice, how the accuser of Emmett Till, Carolyn Bryant, has died. And has died maybe skirting or escaping the possibility of what she has deserved. So we'll talk about this with Dr. Robert Dalen Brown. And also in the next hour, we got to talk about the controversial comments of Isaiah Washington. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. And if you're just tuning in, welcome to all of our watchers. Thank you so much for checking in and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, if you didn't have a chance to watch the first hour, make sure you check us out on the replay. And most importantly, make sure you let your friends and family know that we are here and we are doing the great work of using this platform to inform, empower, educate, and so much more. So check us all out on blackstarnetwork.com and, of course, on Amazon News. All right, folks, I wanted to have a different conversation. I posted this. I made a post about this when I heard the news, folks. When I heard the news about what happened to the accuser of Emmett Till, Carolyn Bryant, and how she had died as a result of cancer. That happened, last week. And so I wanted to bring my brother back on here to kind of talk about this idea of unresolved justice, as she admitted to lying about that interaction between her and little brother Emmett Till that led to the horrendous murder of our little brother. And some would say was the tipping point for the civil rights movement, and how she never served a day in jail and essentially walked away scot-free. Well, she walked away only to walk into a serious medical situation that had taken her life, but it has been years. She died in her 80s, folks. So what happens next? How do you handle this level of what we call unresolved justice? Let me bring in my brother, Dr. Robert Dalen Brown. Dr. Brown, thank you again, brother, for joining me for this conversation. What was your reaction to hearing about the death of Carolyn Bryant, who was formerly Carolyn Bryant Dunham. What was your reaction? Because mine was no crocodile tears. No crocodile tears, bro.
I understand you completely. I understand you completely. No crocodile tears. I think what is happening is this is another example of, white supremacy getting unchecked by the American culture, right? We have so many instances of racism and white supremacy taking Black lives, subjugating Black bodies. But again, it's getting unchecked by the powers that be. It's getting unchecked by American society. I think Carolyn Bryant should have been brought to justice. That warrant should have been served. And the fact that it failed to do so, the fact that she was not brought to justice is a failure on the part of American government, a failure on the part of American society. American culture made this happen.
It's a huge failure. It's a huge failure. My question is now, Doc, is, her family. What about the family of of Emmett Till, Mamie Till? Like, is that the end? Because it feels like this might be the end. Here is this long drawn out saga for over it's been about at least 60 years, and there has been no real justice. I mean, every couple of years we get more information. Like you said, the warrant should have been served, which was stored away and was never served. She came out years later saying, "Oh, I lied about the interact." Like, to your point, it's a complete failure, but then it still feels like she got away with murder.
You know what? There's a couple of complex factors here. There are a lot of people saying, she didn't actually cause the violence, but in actuality, because she was the accuser and she sparked the whole process to go underway back in 1955. She was the one responsible for setting these things in motion, and that should have her be held accountable. As far as seeing justice and whether or not this is the end for the family, she was the very, very, very last person that could have been brought to justice in this entire 68-year ordeal. And because she died before that happened, there is no one else that we can legally bring to justice like this. Right? She was that last piece of the puzzle. Now, going forward, what we have to do as a Black community and as a nation at large is we have to figure out how do we reconcile with the fact that America still is doing the same things in 2023 that it did in 1955.
I'm only quiet because I'm letting that marinate for me.
Yeah, please. Hey, no
That's
problem.
the reason I'm quiet.
It's a very complex. So many factors are inextricably intertwined here. We're in 2023.
Right.
We're many decades past this horrific, tragic incident, and we still are not bringing the right people to justice.
And it's not, and it's that, along with the fact that she publicly says she lied.
Right.
It wasn't like amongst friends, in a small group of people. I mean, this is now public record. She admitted to lying. And I mean, you know it like I know it, and I'm sure many of our watchers know it. This was such a pivotal case.
Right. Very much so.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this was such a pivotal case. And you gotta just grin and bear it. You know what I mean? Like, you just gotta take the hit, because she was never brought to justice. And to make it, the point that you made about her being the last person that could have been brought to justice or be held accountable, and now she's dead, it's like death is too sweet for. You know what I'm saying? And look, I know some people probably get upset with me and be like, man, that is harsh. This lady died. Like, bro, we talking about a woman that lied that led to the killing, I mean, the horrific murder
of a 14-year-old.
Of a 14-year-old where he was dragged and beaten and, I mean, just done inhumane things to his body for a lie.
Exactly right. And what's happening is, as a result of all this, we who are the descendants of the civil rights movement, we who are still here, are still subjugated to the racial trauma that was caused by all of this 68 years ago. And it's having an effect on us. You know, we have people who are arguing and debating on whether Emmett Till's family should have forgiven, or should they not have forgiven, or we forgive too much, or, you know, all of these debates are still going on as a result of the trauma that we still have in our community. You know, this is legacies and legacies of trauma, legacies and legacies of injustice, legacies and legacies of racial trauma and white supremacy being unchecked. That's the key. It's being unchecked.
So, Dr. Brown, when we look at, I mean, you also work in a personal coach space. So you're talking about helping people to work through trauma, through difficult points in life, through mental blocks, you know, in all of those spaces.
Right.
A collective healing, right? Because that's what I'm hearing from you, brother, is that we, at this point, there's just going to have to be the decision made that we are going to move on from this, that we're never going to forget this, and we will never forget, but that we just have to kind of, quote unquote, move on from this, right?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
I believe in forgiveness. I believe wholeheartedly that forgiveness is a part.
Who should be qualified to forgive?
But see that's the thing. Forgiveness is such a personal, very, very complicated tool in a person's healing journey. Now, even though I believe in forgiveness, I also believe that part of the healing journey is restorative justice, because the person who was harmed, they have to grieve. They have to be angry. They have to feel that injustice is happening to me and something needs to be made right. Both of those things have to happen. And what we're being asked to do as a Black community, we often are being asked to forgive without the other piece that's also necessary, which is restorative justice. Both have to happen. And if one is missing, the other doesn't hold water. So we can always say we need to move on and forgive, but it is very, very unfair to ask a community to forgive when the other piece hasn't taken place.
Well, who are we forgiving?
Right.
That would be my question. Forgive who? She's dead. She's dead for one, but why would we forgive her? And I get the part what you're saying. Look, I gotta take a break because I'm getting heated just talking about it. I gotta take a quick pause.
Let's do it.
Y'all talk to me as we talk to Dr. Brown. He's bringing us some excellent points. Let's have this conversation of this level of unresolved justice. How do we move forward? How do we? And I'm using the term moving on lightly. I'm just saying, how do we process this to move forward to get to some level of peace and healing within ourselves? I want y'all to share your thoughts with me, post your comments, and we'll get to them. And stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Right.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been checking in with my brother, Dr. Robert Dalen Brown, who is a personal coach. He's an educator. He's an author. And we've been talking about this sense of unresolved justice as we talk about the accuser of Emmett Till, Carolyn Bryant, how she has died last week as a result of her having cancer. Now, Carolyn lived to be in her 80s, and she never served one day in prison. She never was served any type of warrant. She never was held fully accountable for the lie she told that has led to the horrific and tragic death of our beloved 14-year-old Emmett Till. Not one sense of justice in the courts had ever taken place for the lie that she told. So we're talking about how do we move forward from this, because this has been such a major case. There have been, over these past few years and over these past few decades, there have been a number of people who have said, bring her to justice. She needs to serve her time in prison. She lied, and therefore another black boy was killed because of the lie. But none of that happened. And essentially, she died from cancer. And I have to admit, folks, it's a little hard. It's a little hard for me to kind of just, as I'm processing all of this, and I'm sure many of you have processed this as well when you heard the news, how to move forward. So we're going to try to do some processing right now to see if we can come up with some ways that we can move forward without forgetting about what happened to our beloved brother, Emmett Till. Dr. Brown, let me bring you back into the frame, sir. I got my crew that have been checking in. They got a lot to say, Doc, around this conversation that we're having. Let me start off with Real Brooklyn, my guy. He said, hell, we have cops that lied in recent cases regarding black folks that are still not prosecuted. So you talking about that trauma that you talked about, we are still suffering. We suffering in the present day, and we suffered 68 years ago.
Right.
We are still suffering. There's still no, what's the best way I can say this, Doc? There's still no reconciliation. There's still no resolving of the ongoing injustice that black people have had in this country. And that's a problem. That is a very, very big problem. Janae, you said admitted and says she can't remember. Do you know how many people are falsely in jail because of accusers who lie or can't remember? It unsettles our justice system. Let me tell you what it unsettles within the justice system. The justice system is moving on fine, Janae, and you know it and I know it. It unsettles the justice system of the mind and the heart and the spirit of black people. Let's start with that justice system. What we know to be right and wrong, it unsettles that a woman can go years and years and years, admit she's wrong, all of this stuff, and she was never, ever brought to the courts. That's unsettling. That will make people lose what they say, Doc. They lose touch with reality, right? Because the injustice is so blatant. It's so blatant and it's so disturbing that it creates an imbalance in one's thinking.
Well, I think you said it best just a couple seconds ago. You know, there's the justice that we know to mean justice, and then there's the justice system, you know, which are two different, which are oftentimes two different things.
And they shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be that. And that's the internal battle that we have as a people constantly. We know what is right. We know what needs to happen. And the system that we call the justice system is not really a justice system. It's a legal system, which is very, very different. Right?
Very different.
We have a very, very, very different definition between the legal system and the justice system. What happens in our society when it comes to these kind of cases, it's not justice that is being served. It's the legal box checking that is more likely to happen. So it ends up with people who are being falsely accused, never seeing the light of day. People who are victims of everything from police brutality to white supremacist killings. And these people are never brought to justice because the legal system is really protecting them.
Oh, yeah. Brother, that's the point. And see, you can't expect people, and this is the crazy thing when I have these conversations, Dr. Brown, I'm sure you've had these discussions as well. But people act like Black folks are just naturally crazy, like we just off our rockers just because. As if they don't see that this is long-standing, this is systemic, this is a result of hatred that has been codified, that has been a part of the institution of every part of our lives, from schools to business to community, that the hatred of Black people runs so deep. Some people would even go as far as to say it's in our bloodstream. That it's a part of our DNA. I remember when they had conversations saying that the Holocaust shifted the DNA structure of the Jewish people for that time period, right? That they experienced that tragedy. What do you think 400 years of enslavement will do to a people?
Well, I think it's even more pernicious than that, because what happens with the Holocaust, slavery, all of these things were horrific, tragic parts of human history. But I think what happens with Black people are so much more pernicious, because what ends up happening is it's a very slow and gradual and systematic and institutional killing of a large number of people.
Absolutely.
Because we have so many things in our world set to go against Black people thriving, you know?
No, you're right.
When you look everything for all of our institutions, all of our systems, the legal system, the education system, the healthcare system, the entertainment industry, the political system, we have so many systems that are set up against us, and it's slowly eroding away at us, and we are asked to save ourselves. We are asked, what can we do? What can we do with our families? What can we say to our kids to help them heal and fight this battle? These are battles that we should not be fighting. That's the whole point. We're raising our kids and raising our families to be strong enough to battle the injustices of people like Carolyn Bryant, to battle the injustices of a racist legal system. We're raising our kids to fight these kind of battles. Instead, what we need to be doing is breaking down the systems that are causing these battles in the first place.
No, I agree.
Yes.
I agree wholeheartedly, brother. Karen, my sister Karen Connor, you checked in and said, Farajii, our ancestor Emmett suffered a violent, incomprehensible death. We should continue to teach his legacy and not allow history and the truth to be whitewashed. Absolutely, Karen. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. My sister Selena Gray well, a couple of people spoke about this idea of forgiveness. And I knew this was going to touch a nerve. But forgiveness, Selena, you said forgiveness is an agreement to not let someone or something continue to hijack our hearts, mind, or spirit. It is for us, not the other person. Forgiveness does not mean we approve of someone's actions.
Ooh. Ooh.
So
very
I'm trying to
you know, it's comments like that that make you you're not supposed to
process
talk
like this, because
like
Selena, I appreciate you. I think you're bringing it right there, right, Doc? She's bringing it right there.
You gotta sit with stuff like that and let it marinate, like you said.
I can't do it. I'm being look. Look, if you come on the show, y'all know I try to be as real and authentic as possible. But this is just one of those things. Like, I'm not saying I'm gonna go to bed angry tonight, but I can't see. Forgiveness is a divine exercise.
A divine exercise. Say more. Say more.
Like, when God asks us to forgive, I don't think he's calling us to forgive our enemies, because God has enemies and he forgives his people. He punishes his enemies.
A divine exercise. Very well.
It's a divine exercise. It's a divine exchange, right? You see what I'm saying? Because you realize that the person that may have violated you is a human being. It's something very divine. I'm gonna be honest with you, Dr. Brown, and there's nothing divine about this what this woman has done, and how she has not only what she's done, but the fact that she never owned up to. I mean, she said it was a lie years later, but the fact that there was no real accountability. She never said sorry.
And
so I'm not extending no olive branch to nobody. And this is just in my personal life. And y'all tell me if y'all do you extend an olive branch to somebody who don't even recognize that they committed a? I mean, she said she lied, but you knew you lied in 1955. So how come in 1956 you didn't lie? You didn't admit to the lie. Or 1950? No. Maybe I'm just going to be angry for it. And it's okay for me, because I know that there are people that exist like that in the world, right, Dr. Brown? So
there are.
So I'm not so quick to forgive. I think this is one of my biggest pet peeves about Black folks and the treatment that we have received by white people. We're so quick to forgive. And it's like, man, come on, man. Like, when do we, like, it's not as if they don't know what type of pain they're enacting on us. They do know. They know. And they should be held accountable for what they know. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
No.
Hey. Then we got to take another pause. But go ahead, dear brother.
Number one, no apologies. No apologies necessary. Number two, I think that goes to Selena Gray's point. You know, forgiveness, that's a choice you can make or not make within yourself. But a lot of times what we do in our society is we hear the words forgiveness and we inadvertently think we okay that other person's behavior. And forgiveness does not mean approving of what happened. Forgiveness does not mean I approve of what happened. It does not mean that I accept what happened. I don't condone it. Forgiveness is something that a person will do on their own to be right within themselves. You can choose to forgive. You could also choose not to forgive, and that is also okay. It is also okay not to forgive.
I appreciate you saying that.
It is 100% okay not to forgive, and that's perfectly fine. The thing that we keep missing in this conversation about Carolyn Bryant is the piece that never gets done, the restorative justice piece. Nobody is talking about how to make this right. Not one person in the last 68 years, not one person in government, not one person has talked about how do we make this right for Black people.
I got to take a break. Dr. Brown, we're going to continue the conversation about black and white because this next discussion about some of the controversial comments from actor Isaiah Washington speaks to this point that we're in. Folks, I got to share with you what Mr. Washington had to say and get your take on it. But I know that the forgiveness and truth is power. My brother, you checked in, you said, Farajii, God's justice and our justice aren't the same. We do it out of vengeance, out of need, out of ignorance. It isn't the same. Hey, God's justice should be our justice. God's justice should be our justice. Why aren't they the same? And if they aren't the same, then how can we make them the same? That's all I'm asking. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Woo! Had to take a little breather. Had to think through this thing, folks. We've been talking about unresolved justice, dealing with the story of the death of Carolyn Bryant, the accuser of Emmett Till, who lied about that accusation that Emmett Till was trying to get fresh with her, that led to that 14-year-old brother's death and murder, and that kicked off a movement. So many complexities with this, and we've been chatting with Dr. Robert Dalen Brown, who's been giving us some insight, some things to think about. And crew, y'all been giving me some things to think about as we've been having this conversation. Now, let me just share with y'all another story as we talk about this. I want to bring Dr. Brown into the frame because this story also speaks to where we are, Dr. Brown, in terms of understanding race relations, the situation, the relationship between Black and whites in this country. And I will say this, of course, as a Black man, it has become so bad in the sense of we almost have fallen in love, or we have fallen in love with those who have oppressed us for all of these years. I remember reading about Stockholm. Is that what they call it? Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome.
Where you fall in love or you start to have compassion for your captor.
You got that relationship with that captor, yeah.
Right. Right. And you start thinking about their needs and extending the olive branch to them. You know what I mean? You start thinking about making sure that they stay safe in the situation, right? So I feel like we are suffering through that as Black people in this country because of the many years of oppression. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because Grey's Anatomy actor Isaiah Washington, he had posted on social media a reflection of his upbringing, but he made this post. Y'all remember Isaiah? Y'all know who Brother Isaiah is. But he remembered and he posted that some of the best elementary school teachers and neighbors he had were KKK members. Keenan, let's show the post, bro. Can you put that up for me, please? I'm going to share with y'all what this post had to say. There it is. This is the post. This is actually what he posted because he took it down and then it was reposted. You know how to go, Dr. Brown.
People
put out there,
screen capture. They capture everything.
You put a little heat. They're like, oh, I'm going to take this down. Somebody saw it. Look what he said. He said, I had some of the best elementary school teachers and even some neighbors that I knew were Klan members back in Texas while growing up. I knew where they stood with me, and they also knew where I stood with them. The boundaries were very, very clear. And I still played with their kids. I just couldn't drink from their outside water hose or come inside their house to eat. And their houses were usually much smaller than what I grew up in. He said, my mother never refused to let their kids into her house to eat a summer lunch and drink from our vintage JFK water glasses. I can't help but wonder today if their kids are vigorously supporting me as an actor today, simply because I show them love and respect as a true Texan and a true American, even when their parents and grandparents forbid them to reciprocate love and respect for me publicly to me back then. But I'm infamous now. I wonder.
Boy.
How do you process that? Now, and I'm saying this, and I'm really praying within myself to the God that we have this conversation in a very civilized, like very enlightened way. That's why I'm asking these questions. That's why I have you on, brother. How do we process that? Because here's a man who had this experience, but the man essentially said that his mother treated the children of white Klan members better than they treated him. Now, people got upset with Isaiah Washington.
You know what? I think people are upset, and rightfully so. There are ways in which he said this message that rightfully gets people upset, because it almost sounds like he's condoning these KKK teachers and neighbors that he had, right? When you say a sentence like, some of the best teachers I've had were Klan members, it sounds as if you are condoning their behavior and you are accepting and you are signing off on all that it means to be a Klan member. And here's my take on it. I actually never saw Grey's Anatomy, but I know who Isaiah Washington is as an actor, celebrity. I get that he has a platform. And a lot of celebrities do have a lot of followers and they like to say whatever but I don't put a lot of stock into what they say for my life, because I understand what celebrity and social media is and how apart from my life and my reality it is. I do think that a lot of these folks are not seeing what the ramifications of their comments are, because if I know for a fact that me saying something like that, I know I'm going to harm some other people. I know I'm harming my folks. I know I'm harming my folks by saying this, and I have no business saying this. His life, I don't know what he went through. I don't know his childhood. I know he's 59 years old or something like that. I don't know what he went through as a kid, and my job is not to assume what he went through. My job now is I have to take care of all the people in my community who are now hearing this madness, right? I got to take care of all the people who are hearing this and have to deal with his comments, right? Now,
it's interesting. I hear you, brother, because I hear you processing it too.
Talk to me.
I hear you processing it.
Yeah, I'm hearing, because all of this I'm hearing, just for the first time myself today, and it's taking me a while to process it myself.
It's going to take us a while, right? Let me say some. Chris Big checked in and said, because being a decent person is about you, not them. That's a great lesson that he learned.
There's something else happening, though. There's something else happening here. Let me tell it to you like this. When I was 18 years old, I went to college. I was a college freshman, right? During freshman orientation week, we're all meeting each other and all this kind of thing. And there was an 18-year-old white girl who came up to me and said, "Hey, what's your name?" And I'm thinking I'm cool. I said, "My name is Robert. What's your name?" And she told me her name. And she said, "I just wanted to meet you, because I'm from the Midwest. I never came to California before, and I never met a black person before." And then she walked away. Now I'm sitting here. I have to ask myself, okay, this person just came up and said, "I never met a black person before," and walked away. How do I deal with this? I could have chased her down and said, "You racist, this, that, and the other." But here is somebody who is doing something that they've never done before and trying to reach out and meet me, and in all their honesty said, "I've never met a black person before." My reaction to it is more important than what she said. My reaction is more important than how I move forward and what I do. That says a lot more than what she did.
Right.
The same thing is true with Isaiah Washington's comments. What he said and what he did and what he came out the mouth, what he posted on that Facebook page, ridiculous, at least to me and to a lot of people. But what matters more is our reaction to it and how we're going to respond.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think that back to the point that you made, I don't think he thought about how harmful and offensive that is.
Right. And the ramifications of all
the ramifications of it, right? And see, the reason I'm bringing this up is because now, and that's why I brought back to the Stockholm Syndrome, where we are now, in some cases, this is 2023. He didn't make this post 10 years ago. He just made this post yesterday or something. This is 2023. And you mean to tell me, okay, that may have been your experience, but as one of my culture crew mentioned, Black people have been in survival mode since we've been brought to these shores. So when you're talking about growing up in racist Texas 50 or 60 years ago, right? Your mother treated them a certain way because she was in survival mode. Knowing that the children's fathers and mothers were part of the clan, she never wanted to be seen as in opposition to that for your ass. That was a survival tactic for mom to keep the peace. And we know that because that's part of our history that a lot of our people knew. And some of us, we get this old silly idea, Dr. Brown, that, oh man, some of our people, man, they went along and they just went along to go get along. No, that was a strategy for some of our people. Man, we can keep getting killed. I can keep being up at night worrying about where my husband or my son or my daughter or this, I can just kind of submit and try to appease and I used to be of that mindset years ago when I was young and dumb and stupid, thinking, oh man, they were weak. It wasn't weak. That's the ultimate strength. Do you know how strong you got to be to submit yourself to somebody else, to their madness and to their wrongness, when you know deep down inside?
Because the ultimate goal is survive one more day.
Survive one more day.
And I think that's the message that was lost with Isaiah Washington. If you know what I mean, we know what families had to go through. You're talking deep South in the 50s and the 60s survive in one more day, the message, if the message doesn't get explained explicitly to these kids, they're going to run away with the wrong message. And then years later, say stuff like this on Facebook.
And see, maybe that was what, maybe his mother did explain, or maybe she didn't. Like, look, the reason we were friendly to the Klan is because the Klan had the power to take your life and not be held accountable for it. They had the power to commit justifiable homicide in their eyes. It's the same way that we see black women treating young black boys around police officers. And I'm not saying that black women are weak by any stretch of the imagination. Y'all,
no, not at all. No.
It's the same way. It's the same mentality. Like and to go back to your point, Dr. Brown, we never got out of that thinking, this mentality of survival mode. Keep your head low. Like, we had those conversations when Trayvon Martin was killed. Don Lemon talking about don't wear a hoodie. Because our people have always been in survival mode when it comes to the relationship that we've had with white America, right? Don't say too much. And I get it. I truly understand it.
But at some point, black folks need to be able to live and thrive and be who they were meant to be.
Come on, brother.
Right? And be who they were meant to be. And that's the thing. When we're appeasing and pleasing, right? When we're appeasing and pleasing white society, we minimize ourselves. We do all these things that make ourselves as small as possible. And what we need to be doing is we need to have those conversations about how to survive one more day, and the conversations about how to break down the systems that are trying to make sure that we don't survive one. We need to have both of these conversations.
And very quick, let me just take this. Let me see, Keenan, let's take one more break. I know we're short in time. Let's take one more break, bro. And I want to close this out real strong. So folks, we're going to take a final pause. When we come forward, get some final thoughts from Dr. Brown and from you. Stay with us. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the controversial comments made by actor Isaiah Washington about him growing up in the racist South of Texas, being taught by teachers of the KKK, and how it impacted his life. We don't have time to go over the post again, and I've been having this conversation with Dr. Robert Dalen Brown. But we've been talking about when you have become very comfortable in saying certain things and not understanding the big picture, or you might be saying certain things that may be offensive, or you're just saying certain things because you're not in touch with the reality of the moment. And I think this is one of those cases. I want to bring Dr. Brown in. This is one of those cases with Isaiah Washington that, yeah, his experience could be, oh, it was all good. They knew where I stand. I knew where they stood. At the end of the day, I couldn't go into their house, but my mom allowed them to drink from the best glasses that we had in the house. She fed them, but you can't. Come on, man. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Like, I get all of the fact that you were able to have that experience, and I'm glad that you were still able to learn something coming from the racism of a KKK member. But at the end of the day, let's not glorify that. That's my problem, Doc. It sounds like you glorify. It sounds like you saying, "Oh man, like it wasn't really bad." You are a black man. You are a black man touting. Now, if the KKK had said something about, we need to separate, which they have said, that's one conversation. That's a different conversation than to say, "Hey man, the KKK are good people." As a black man, I didn't have no problems with them. That's what he's essentially saying to me, Dr. Brown. I didn't have no problems with them. We let them eat in our homes. How crazy does that sound? I'm not gonna let somebody that outright hates me eat from the finest dishes that I have in the cabinet, drink from the glasses that I only reserve for special guests, and eat from my food. And I know you hate me. The inside of one's home is really the only place of sanity in heaven that we have control over in this country. And you mean to tell me that I have to open my door to somebody that hates me when you don't do the same for me? That absolutely is madness to me, brother.
You know what? I'm about to say something, and this might be a little controversial.
Oh, well, that's
now,
not even Black
here we go. Now,
this Black Star Network.
Now, I just want you to stay with me here because, and all your
got a
listeners,
couple of moments, brother. Go ahead.
All right. 70% of all teachers are women in this country.
Right.
And almost all of them are white women. Back in the 60s, it was even more. Back in the 60s, if you went to school, especially in the South, chances are you were taught by a white woman, no doubt. And you're sitting there thinking that I'm having school, it's 1965, I'm in school, I'm learning all this stuff. This teacher is, you graduate, you move on, not knowing that some of those teachers were probably related and probably in the KKK themselves and probably racist. But you, as your elementary school self, probably didn't know it. One of the things that's happening here, I think, I could be wrong, but Isaiah Washington is making these comments many, many years later. He is putting meaning behind what happened to him as an elementary school kid. My take on this might be this. A lot of people, a lot of us, we went to school and were taught by racist people. We were probably taught by Klan members ourselves and didn't know it. But the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to make this comment on social media in order to appease or in order to put this idea out here that some KK members are good people, because I know the danger in doing that. I know the danger in putting my words out there and making it seem like I'm condoning behavior. I don't condone behavior from the KKK. I don't condone white supremacist behavior. But a lot of us were taught by racist people. And we need to acknowledge the fact that a lot of us, especially people like me who were born in the 70s, we were taught by racist people. And we have to go through our childhood unlearning a lot of the crap that they taught us.
I agree. I agree, and I wish we had more time on this, Dr. Brown. Lord knows, I wish we had more time.
Farajii, I'm with you.
You're absolutely right, brother. We were all taught. I'm sure many of us were taught by racist people, right? But you can't tell me if you're taught that way, then your teachers won't be affected by that. I'm gonna say that one more time for the chat in the back. You can't tell me if you have a heart that is distorted and as messed up by racism, that your teachings, whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever you profess, is going to be tainted with that disease, with that cancer.
You won't be able to see me as a full.
You won't be able to see me.
Right.
So I'm dropping some seed in your brain of your inferiority and my superiority in some way, shape, or form. I believe you. I believe it. That's right. It just doesn't come like that. You don't have an ugly heart and pure teachings. It don't come out like that, man. That doesn't make sense. It's mathematics. It's all about what you think, how you believe, how your attitudes, it's going to be manifested either in your teachings, your upbringing, how you are in the community in relationship to other people. It's all of that. It's all of that.
Well said.
Dr. Brown, oh man, I appreciate you, brother. Got to bring you back once again, have these conversations, but I thank you so much. Very quickly, got like 10 seconds. How can people get more information about the work you do?
Very simple. All you got to do is go to joker2king.com. That's joker2to king.com. YouTube, website, social media. That's how you can find me.
Awesome. Dr. Robert Dalen Brown, check it in. Joker to King, great brother, author, personal coach, educator, doing some fabulous work for the culture. And we appreciate you, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much, brother, for your time.
Hey, it's always an honor being on this show. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Go to Black Star Network today to do your due diligence, to support us, and follow us on social media at Black Star Network on all social media platforms. Also follow me at Farajii Muhammad. I'm on Twitter at on Twitter at Farajii, and on IG at The Real Farajii. So follow me as well. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Peace.